All right, it worked. I think it worked right there. Come on,
Yeah,
man.
you timed it perfect.
So I don't remember what time I chose right there, but welcome once again to another episode of Folks Talking Sports. I'm Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review, the host. Joining me right now is the young lion of the trio, and Yanez from the Community Impact newspaper, and Pawd Slama Jama. Willy Gibson should be joining us shortly to complete the trio. Well, Andy, let's get right into it because I want to spend more time talking about the Alliance and Pac-12, all kind of stuff. We want to get into Rockets discussion. Rockets made it official with the announcement of they re-signed Armani Brooks, but it's just an Exhibit 10 deal. So that's the third Exhibit 10 deal if they signed this week. The other two were Tyler Bay and Daisha Nix. I'm not sure what this means for Armani. For fans who wonder, let me get this. I think Will's joining us right now. He's popping in right there. Hello, sir. Hello, Mr. Gibson. How are you, sir?
Well, sir, how are you?
Doing well. All right. An Exhibit 10 deal is a 1-year non-guaranteed minimum contract with built-in clauses enabling, in this case, the Rockets, to convert them to two-way contracts. So as long as the conversion takes place before the regular season begins. Otherwise, Armani Brooks, because that's what we're talking about right now, on an Exhibit 10 deal become non-guaranteed minimum deals. Exhibit 10 deals also feature bonuses between $5,000 and $250,000 that kick in if the player is waived and that player reports to the G League affiliate for at least 60 days. Folks may wonder, what's a two-way contract? The difference. A two-way contract permits players signed to that deal to be active for no more than 50 games during the regular season with no limit on practices, workouts, or other activities with the NBA team. Beyond that 50 games, the player spends time in the G League. So Armani was in the G League with the Rockets this past season. He I guess, was bumped up to the big boys, and now he's back on an Exhibit 10 deal. Andy, the Rockets got 14 guaranteed contracts. You can only have 15 during the regular season. So what does this mean for Armani Brooks?
I think this is a wake-up call for Armani Brooks that even though he showcased last season in a bits of stretches where he could be a valuable asset for whether it's the Rockets or any NBA team with his shooting, it's not enough. And even in the summer league, it kind of worked against him with the health and safety protocol that he had. Still, I believe they never announced if he had tested positive, but with the amount of time he missed, you kind of wonder. But he only got to play in 2 games in the summer league. Didn't do so well in the first one. Had 30-point outing in the final game of the summer league for the Rockets. So, I mean, that's really all I could take away from it. I mean, it's a wake up call for Armani Brooks that he has to show a little bit more.
And the Chronicle, Jonathan Fagan reports that Anthony Lamb will be also brought into camp with the possibility of having that other guaranteed spot, which kind of surprised me. Both of them had one great showing in summer league. Okay. The Rockets may opt to just keep that slot open and not sign anybody to a guaranteed contract and just go with the two-way deals. You can have up to two-way contracts and then 6 Exhibit 10 deals, but of course Exhibit 10 deals become different once the regular season begins. So in case folks are wondering, let me pull it up real quick. Some of the guys on the guaranteed contracts for the Rockets, we know John Wall, Eric Gordon, Christian Wood, Jalen Green, Daniel Tice, DJ Augustine, Dave Nwaba, Danwell House, Alperen Şengün, Usman Garuba, Josh Christopher, Kevin Porter, Kyrie Thomas, guaranteed for this year, KZ Martin, Jayshawn Tate. Out of those 14 spots, I don't see any problems with them with that 14. So Armani, in this sense, I'm kind of curious why Armani and his people re-sign with the Rockets. Is there not a better option out there for him? I think that he's betting on himself, possibly. Clearly the Rockets love 3-point shooting, but this is gonna be tough for him to make this squad, man. And even if he makes it, the playing time is he won't get a lot of minutes. Will,
yes, sir.
Mr. Ohio, Mr. Cleveland Cavaliers. Pull the camera down, man. Like you're sitting down, man. Rise up to us, my brother. Scoot up, move forward.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm kind of indicative of how I feel right now.
All right. Cavs made a trade today.
Kobe Altman, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Enlighten us on that deal and give me your thoughts.
Yeah, there was a signing trade. Cleveland sent a 3-team deal, including the signing trade. Kevin Love, I
said wishful thinking right there. Yep.
Wishful thinking. You see where my head is at?
Yeah.
Cleveland sent Larry Nance Jr. to the Portland Trailblazers. Portland sent Derek Jones Jr. to Chicago, as well as a lottery protected first-round draft pick, as well as I believe Chicago or Cleveland sent a second-round pick to Chicago as well. Chicago signed Lauri Markkanen to a 4-year, $67 million contract, and now he's a Cleveland Cavalier. My thoughts?
Yes, sir.
Again, we wonder what Kobe Altman is thinking, because it was clear this team. Well, let's back up. 2 to 3 years ago, this team lacked size. They had 12 guards on a 15-man roster, literally. So they lacked size 3 years ago. So now he has size, but it's the wrong size. He needs a wing. He traded. We all knew Larry Nance Jr. was the only viable trade piece that they had in order to improve this roster. Last summer, he had a trade with a team for 2 first-round draft picks for Larry Nance Jr. And he turned it down, saying that was not enough. So we thought, okay, okay, two late first-round draft picks, okay, fine. But to trade him for what he did today, and this.
Come on, Will. Say it.
Doesn't make sense. I'll say that. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. He's the only GM since Dan Gilbert bought the team that earned the second contract. He has 2 years left on his deal. He felt secure in this position, clearly, to make this trade. But to trade Larry Nance for another big, when, by the way, with the 3rd overall pick last month, you drafted Evan Mobley, and you also, in the first day of free agency, as well you should have, re-signed Jarrett Allen to a 5-year, $100 million contract. You signed Lauri Markkanen, who, by the way, had no market. He was been a restricted free agent for day one, and no one, well, I won't say he had no market. The market was drying up quickly for him.
Right.
And you threw him a life raft. And the only part that makes me feel a little bit better about this is I talked to a source about 4 o'clock, and I just saw it again reported probably within the last hour. But I talked to a source about 4 o'clock, and buyout discussions with Kevin Love have begun. So makes me feel a little bit better. But the return for Larry Nance is inexcusable. Larry Nance was not just a player; he's a veteran. He was a veteran in that locker room that kept those young guys together. Other veterans, shall remain unnamed, may or may not have been steering young players the wrong way. Larry Nance was the veteran that was going to make sure they ate well on the road, made sure they spent time before and after practice working on the game, made sure they watched film, things of that nature. And beyond that, he's a legacy. Larry Nance Jr., Larry Nance Sr. has his number in the Raptors. Actually gave his son permission, gave the Cavs permission to take 22 from the rafters so his son could wear it. Grew up 30 miles from, he's another kid from Akron. LeBron's the kid from Akron. Larry Nance Jr. is the kid from Akron as well. And off the court was phenomenal. He did something last year. I know I'm long-winded. You asked me a question, but
go ahead, man.
He during the pandemic reached out to local establishments where every game day he wore a T-shirt of a local establishment pregame. Made sure that cameras saw him wearing that paraphernalia, T-shirt, hat, whatever. And then after that game, auctioned his jersey off from that game. And the proceeds from that jersey, he matched and donated to that establishment for the night. So that's the type of guy that Kobe Altman traded today. And Portland's ecstatic.
Portland should be. Yeah, they should be. Yeah.
It's static. I mean, a defender, someone who's going to rebound, someone who's going to set screens for Dame. I mean, they're ecstatic. But it's the Cleveland aspect doesn't make sense at all.
Okay, well, when they do agree to a buyout with Kevin Love, how are you going to divvy up the minutes with marketing, Jared Allen, and Evan Mobley?
Exactly. Isaac Okoro. Because the people say,
yeah,
right. Because people say, well, they could play marketing at the 3. Well, you drafted Isaac Okoro number 5 last year. So you have 2 guys on rookie deals, but you go out and sign Lauri Markkanen for $67 million, who plays the same positions. Make it make sense.
Yep, 4 years, $67 million. Good on him. Good for his agent.
Without question.
His agent needs to represent Dennis Schroeder. But that's another issue right there. All right, guys, in case folks are late tuning in, we shifted to Friday today because Will was covering the Cleveland Browns Sunday, and it would be too much to go at 7 o'clock on a Sunday Central. That's why I moved to Friday. And once football season begins, college 0 week starts tomorrow.
Right around the corner.
So we'll get into a routine where everybody can find us and know when to find us and stick to it. May do more than one show a week as a trio. I'm going to try to do some of my one-on-ones, individual shows 2-3 times a week, as well as interviews. But Armani Brooks re-signed with the Rockets, but it's an Exhibit 10 deal. I wish him good luck. Rockets got 14 guaranteed contracts. An Exhibit 10 deal is not a guaranteed contract. It's non-guaranteed. So he's got to work his way through it. And once again, let me go over the guard wings for the Rockets, because this is what he's dealing with. Guards: John Wall, Eric Gordon, Jalen Green, DJ Augustine, Josh Christopher, Kevin Porter Jr., Kyrie Thomas. I didn't even mention the wings like David Nwaba, So good luck to Armani Brooks. I'm really curious if Rocket fans, if you're tuning in on YouTube, what are your thoughts on this? They had one comment say Rockets need to keep him and Kyrie. Okay. But where are they going to play? Who's going to beat out for minutes? So good luck to Armani. And we'll see how it all plays out. But I want to shift gears to college basketball and the American, specifically Emoni Bates and his commitment to the Memphis Tigers. This Wednesday, he and Jalen Duren reclassified from the class of 2022 to 2021. Both have committed to Memphis. They will be eligible to play this season for the Tigers for head coach Penny Hardaway and assistant coaches Larry Brown and Ball Don't Lie Rasheed Wallace. So the Tigers, majority of preseason polls I've seen put them in around top 10, top 15. Seth Davis, I think it was Seth Davis with the Athletic, has them 19, one spot behind the Houston Cougars. It's August 27th. I really couldn't care less about preseason picks one way or the other, but I think it's good for the conference. But I want to get you guys' take initially, and then I'm going to play a clip from my interview I did today with Steven Johnson, the second one I did with him, but today spoke to Steven Johnson from the Daily Memphian. He's a beat writer for the Tigers, men's basketball, and he has about a 2-minute clip. He has some thoughts that I picked a segment for you guys to check out, as well as the viewers. But your thoughts on Emoni Bates, 6'8", 17-year-old superstar high schooler who supposedly was the next KD, the next this, that, and the other. As a freshman, he kind of plateaued, so much so that folks began to question, is he a top 5, top 10 player anymore? But that's your thoughts. Andy, you first, about Emoni Bates and that talent, another 5-star committing to Memphis.
Yeah, the Penny Hardaway recruiting, what would you even say it? The magic that he has in recruiting, for lack of a better word, it continues. And I told you this when it was officially announced. I think it's perfect for Memphis. I think it kudos to whoever tweeted it. I don't know if it was Jeff or it might have been Lawrence Sampson from the UH men's basketball account. Like about an hour after the news broke, they tweeted out a picture of their American Athletic Conference title and the NCAA Midwest title. So it just adds fuel to the fire to that rivalry. But I mean, really, what a great get for the American Athletic Conference as a whole. To have more eyeballs on the conference, like you mentioned, and a lot more national attention for Memphis, which in turn is more national attention for the entire conference. And like I said, probably a little bit more fuel to the fire for Houston, especially if you start seeing a lot of these national, whether it's reporters or just people that follow the sport nationally, that might pick Memphis over Houston to start the season. I think Houston loves that mentality of being an underdog.
Will, what do you think?
I think someone needs to check on Tom Izzo, because didn't Emoni Bates commit verbally to Michigan State?
He did.
Yeah.
And when he did, I mean, nobody thought he was going to college.
Of course.
Anyway, so then he decommitted.
Right.
And I think his dad and his people, dad mainly, realized that Emoni's only 17. Initially they thought that he'd be able to declare straight out of high school, go to the NBA, but they have not changed any rules. They thought that the NBA would change it for Emoni Bates and get back to taking high schoolers straight out of high school to the NBA.
Yeah.
Nope. Then they realized, okay, well, let's decommit and then reconsider our options. And this is where they are. It was down to, what was it, Memphis, Oregon. Yep. I think Michigan State was still considered, or the G League. So what do you think? Well, I mean, Tom Izzo, he ain't crying. He could, okay, whatever.
No, he's fine. He's fine. But as far as the NBA changing that rule, I think they're about 2 years away from changing that rule. I'll leave that there. But they're about 2 years away.
Perhaps. But, my thinking, how about this? It impacts the G League. Yeah. If you keep it as is, the way it is now, the high school seniors who don't want to go to college, go to the G League for that 1 year and then declare for the NBA draft. They can do it that way. So, those options are there. Emoni's talented.
Yeah.
Some folks have said he's got, and this is, I think, warranted because so much has been put on him. He has a chip on his shoulder. There goes that phrase again. There about every lazy media person to ask a player now. Because of the expectations, he's hot-headed. He gets technical fouls in games. Hey, players going to challenge him. Up-and-comers going to challenge him. No, dudes in no game going to challenge him. See what you got, man. Kind of stuff. Try to get under his skin and all those things. Being 17 years old, I'm going to see how he adapts to college basketball, to expectations. Memphis basketball fans are different. Okay. They live and die with Memphis Tigers basketball more than the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
Memphis Tigers fans, truly live and die with their Memphis Tigers basketball. So how will he be able to handle the heat, the pressure, as Penny says, the smoke? If Emoni has a bad game, a bad week, some of those fans be like, you ain't all that. we all got all excited because of this. You ain't nothing. That kind of stuff. So how will he handle that?
Right.
And because he's so young, he can't go to the pros for the 2022 draft. He has to stick around for one more year. Now, that one more year may not be at Memphis. And that's one thing Steven Johnson touched on. So the whole interview with me and Steven, conversation, as I call him now, trying to get into that vernacular, it's about 13 minutes long. It's on my YouTube channel, Houston Roundball Review. He suggested that he wouldn't be surprised if Emoni 1 year at Memphis and then went to the G League for a year and then went to the NBA. So that possibility right there. But here's about 2 minutes of my conversation with Steven Johnson. Guys, check it out. What does all this mean for the conference, the American Athletic Conference?
Well, I think it helps everybody. It's more high profile games. ESPN is going to be ESPN, CBS. They're going to try to do the best to get as many games of Emoni Bates and Jalen Duren as they can. And that means that for your Wichita State, UCF, Tulane, that means you're on ESPN2 playing with Memphis. And, of course, like we kind of talked about earlier, now if you're one of those teams that can knock off of Memphis, then that only is going to help you down the line in March as well. Because if Memphis performs to their expectations, they'll be a top 25, top 15 type team. I think this also means that those games against Houston, I'm really ready for the AAC to drop the schedule. Those games were already going to be intense battles. There's going to be wars now because I know Houston has added some guys and brings a lot of guys back. So I'm going to circle that game on my calendar, as I'm sure every Memphis and Houston fan is as well.
No doubt. And I can truly believe that Kelvin Sampson and the staff have, if they haven't already, they will tell the players, see, none of them picking Houston now. It's all Memphis again. So
Houston again, eat it up.
Everybody. So I'm looking for those matchups as well. I'm not sure. Do you have an idea when the conference is going to announce the conference schedule?
Not yet. I'm still waiting for Memphis to release this. They released their home non-conference schedule. I'm waiting for them to release the away games as well too. I know they have Memphis plays Tennessee and Nashville on December 18th. They're going to Brooklyn for the NIT season tip-off at kind of on Thanksgiving week, where they'll play Virginia Tech in the opening game. So hopefully sometime by next month, I would think. Well, yeah, next month or so, because I want to see how I'm interested to see how the conference positions those games with Memphis and Houston. Do you start it off early, or do you kind of save those two games for the end of the season where potentially? I think Memphis and Houston will be in a race all season, so they could set it up potentially where you can have a regular season finale with the two best teams, not only in the conference but maybe in the country, facing off for that conference crown.
Thoughts on that? Could be two of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, that caught my attention too. But I mean, he hit all the points really, especially when it comes to. I hadn't thought of it for the past two seasons. CBS has ended their game prior to the conference schedule with Houston and Memphis as that game. I'd imagine it'd be something similar to that. That's kind of become for the two seasons I've covered, it's kind of become a hallmark for the way the season ends. I could totally see that continuing, especially if it's the CBS national game at around noon, I believe, or I think it might be at 11. One of those years
was at 11. Yeah, it was 11 o'clock Central time. Yep.
But it's kind of like that prime time slot. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they schedule it. Maybe have one early in the season, have the second one later. I know for the past two seasons they've they only played once last year, but before they played in February, towards the end of February, and then like 2 weeks later or a week or so was the game. But he hit it all the points in terms of this rivalry between Houston and Memphis, which is honestly the only rivalry, at least from the men's basketball perspective, where you actually feel them when those games happen. Not only are the games always good, they always end up coming down to the wire. But I can speak from experience, and that was one of the only road games we were able to travel to. I was covering for the Cougar at the FedEx Forum, and I was sat behind the Memphis fans that were just, every time Kelvin Sampson would get up and scream at a player or whatever to call plays, you would have Memphis fans telling them to shut up or nonsense, like heckling the entire game. So that I love it. Just it's that atmosphere that, I mean, that's what college basketball is all about.
Will, what do you think about what you heard?
Yeah, it'd be interesting that that rivalry, the fuse has been lit, I'll say. And I mean, that's what networks do. They want to put the premier games on with their premier programs for that conference. And kudos to the AAC. I mean, like you said, Tulane, UCF, those teams now. I know Ron Hunter is excited that now his team is getting some run, and interesting for Penny and Memphis. And what you said earlier about the 1 year piece is he going to only be there for a year and not be around the next? So I mean, it's a win-win. It's a win-win for the conference. It's a win-win for Memphis. It's a win-win for the networks.
I wonder who will get. ABC/ESPN get one of those two matchups, because CBS has had one of the games last 2 seasons. So I wonder who will get the other matchup.
I'd imagine it might be split, because I remember in the 2019-20 season, the first game in Memphis was on ESPN, and the second one was on CBS. So,
but this past season, Houston was who they played, UCF or somebody was on ABC.
Right. So
it was the conference's first. This Will.
Yeah, that was
the conference's first game on ABC. The 7 years of the conference. So I wonder if ABC will tell ESPN, oh yeah, we want this game Saturday high noon. We want it. Y'all just cover everybody else on ESPN. We want one of those 2 games on the big channel. I think so.
I missed that. You said the first game that month on ABC,
no.
First game that week.
No. You heard correctly. That was the first American Athletic Conference game on ABC in the 8-year history of the conference to air on ABC. They've had other games obviously on CBS, not a lot, CBS, but mostly on ESPN, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Oh,
the first game
for men's basketball
on ABC.
Got it. Fair enough.
Won't be the last now with Penny and Houston team coming off a Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to that. Andy, earlier in the week, just run down this real quick, because I want to get into the discussion about realignment, the alliance, Big 12, Pac-12. But U of H announced finally, because we touched on it Sunday, their non-conference schedule. Exhibition game against Montana Tech, November 6th. That's Coach Sampson's the school he had his first head coaching job. So they're going to be at Fertitta Center home game. November 9th to start the season. Hofstra. November 12th, Rice. These are home games. November 16th, Houston hosts Virginia.
Yes.
The combined score of that game
20-19.
Won't be out of maybe 120.
Yeah.
I'd be like 61-59, something like that. I'd be shocked if it's more than, if anybody gets in the 70s.
Yep.
Then the Coogs go to Maui. First game they play Butler on November 22nd. Then they'll either face Texas A&M or Wisconsin on the 23rd. And then 24th, either Oregon, Chaminade, St. Mary's, or Notre Dame. Everybody in that Maui gets 3 games. So win or lose, you're still going to play the next day. November 30th, back at home, Northwestern State. December 3rd, Bryant. December 6th, Alcorn State, home game. First road game outside of Maui, December 11th at Alabama. December 14th, home versus Louisiana. December 18th, neutral site, Fort Worth versus Oklahoma State in the Dickies Arena. December 22nd, close it out, non-conference at Texas State in San Marcos, Texas. Andy, what are your thoughts on that non-conference schedule? No. Will, the outsider, what are your thoughts on that non-conference schedule?
It's decent. You have Alabama, you have Oklahoma State, you have the Maui. So it's 5 games.
Virginia?
Yeah, Virginia, Oklahoma State, and the Maui. I mean, yeah, that's it, Virginia. I said Alabama. Yeah, Yeah, decent. It's decent.
You know, it's a balance because I got to admit, when I was going down, I was like, man, Bryant, Rice, Alcorn State. I was like, yee.
You know what? I thought that too, but I'll say this. In basketball, you can kind of get away with the cupcake schedule. Somewhat.
Yeah, it's a good balance. And until the NCAA metric, the net ranking, you know, they said when it first started that the margin of victory would be capped at 10. I don't know if last season, because of COVID and how there was so much, not enough data to go into the formula, margin of victory seemed to play a bigger role in the metric last year. To get back to, if it's still a factor this year, then the Cougs will be fine. They're going to mash these lesser known schools and help their ranking.
Yeah.
If it's capped at 10, then they'll have, in terms of the metric, a lot of 10-point wins. So, but anyway, what are your thoughts on the schedule?
Yeah, like you guys mentioned, a lot of balance. What stood out to me is the amount of home games they have for the non-conference part. I think the only true road game is against Alabama, and then of course the Maui Invitational, but that's much
And
more of a neutral.
Texas State.
Oh, correct. Yeah. But yeah, outside of those, a lot of games at Fertitta Center, which a couple of high-profile games at Fertitta Center too. But I think it's a good stretch, and like you mentioned, that portion where they face, you know, the Alcorn State, Bryant universities. I think it's good to have them lined up where, you know, it sandwich off the Maui Invitational and, you know, of a couple of the other more high-profile games that they have in the non-conference before the end of the year and the American Athletic part of the schedule starts. So overall, I think this is a good job of them just balancing everything out, where something went, and kind of going on these stretches where, you know, depending on what happens at the Maui Invitational, they have those 3 games. Well, they'll be favored to win, and you'd imagine them. It's more of being able to perfect the craft before getting into those high-profile games and going into the conference part of the schedule.
And as long as the conference is good beyond Houston and Memphis, Wichita State should be good again. Should be, I think, tournament team, borderline tournament team. SMU, same thing. UCF needs to be good. Non-conference, the teams got to make hay and get it done in the non-conference. If the conference has 5 or 6 teams throughout the season battling for an NCAA tournament bid, that helps. If you got a bunch, you know, if you got East Carolina, who beat U of A last season, you know, U of A on the road, you need the rest of the teams, the bottom half of the conference, to be good. Non-conference, pick up some quality wins, non-conference, and then you look good in conference, then the losses won't hurt you. You know, one thing Stephen Johnson touched on toward the end of our conversation, he does not believe Memphis will sweep Houston. He does not believe Memphis will go undefeated. You know, like I said, Memphis fans are different. You know, they wear those glasses, and we got the best team in school history and all that kind of stuff. We're going to roll through everybody. No, not according to Stephen Johnson. That's not going to happen. But so all those things on the table. Watch the full interview on my YouTube channel, Houston Roundball Review. Gentlemen, let's get into it. I'm not sure how often we're going to talk about this, but continue talking about it. But the Pac-12 made official what I expected, many people expected, that they announced they're not going to expand for now. At this time, that's the term, that's key. At this time.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to that announcement, hours or so prior to that announcement, John Wilner from Bay Area News, Mercury News, San Jose Mercury News, etc., wrote an article. And he said, and he hinted at it, said plainly, that he did not believe that the Pac-12 was going to announce expansion. They're going to expand right now. He said the clear choice, and he latched on to that term, the clear choice from everyone else, available schools that the Pac-12 should consider, is Houston. He said no to BYU because of religious affiliation and other factors. Other schools in the Big 12, TCU, Baylor, just not academically on par with Pac-12, etc. His reasons for Houston. One of them, athletic budget. U of H is on par with, in terms of spending, on par with the Pac-12 schools. U of H is about $22.9 million for equipment and facilities. Pac-12, $22.98 million, about the same. On coaches' salaries, U of H, $16.55 million. Pac-12, $20 million. You know, of course, this is per school, per member school. Houston's football power ranking over the past 5 years is 57.4. Pac-12 is 49.3, which that kind of surprised me. But the Pac-12 basketball, past 5 years, U of H KenPom rating, 20.2. Pac-12, 82.7. Houston has produced more ESPN 300 football recruits than any city except Miami. Since 2013, Houston's football program has drawn an average of 3.3 million viewers on Fox, ESPN, ABC, and CBS when facing Power 5 opponents. Of the Pac-12 teams, only Oregon's viewership is higher at 4.66 million. And his last thought, once Oklahoma and Texas leave the Big 12 will have zero presence in the massive southeastern Texas region. Thoughts on that? Will, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a natural fit. I mean, for those reasons and some others. I mean, Houston, I mean, I think they raised the profile of the Pac-12. The Pac-12, as you said, outside of Oregon, really hasn't done a lot. Was it 82.7?
Yeah.
Basketball?
But yeah. Okay, so you're talking basketball.
Yeah. Football. I mean.
Well, see, that's the irony. I think all the numbers we study, Houston's football program is the anchor, is pulling down Houston's athletics.
Yeah.
Because basketball is doing great. Let's see, baseball kind of going down right now, but track and field, great. Swimming, diving, solid.
Yep.
The football program is the one that's like, come on, Dana, do your part. You know.
Yeah, but in comparison to the Colorado, in comparison to Oregon State,
Washington State, etc. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. So it makes sense. It makes sense. So it's clear, as you said, the caveat at this time.
Right.
At this time.
And that's where I think the Pac-12 is going to go to negotiate its next deal, TV deal, media rights deal. It comes up in 36 months, 2024. But they can begin talks in about 18 months. I think in these next 18 months, Houston needs to get everything lined up, dot those I's, cross those T's. So because I think, here's a question I got for you guys. Do you think Bob Bowlesby, would ESPN, because of what Bob Bowlesby said and accused ESPN of colluding with the American, would ESPN not negotiate another deal in the future once Big 12's deal expires and just says you're on your own?
Yes. Yes, they will.
Especially if they stay the way they're constructed right now. They're not really losing much.
Yep.
So, okay. So in that case, if that, why even consider the Big 12? So then U of H does everything. Dot those I's, cross those T's. Fox, NBC, whoever, but Fox, because Big 12, Pac-12 games on Fox. Fox says, hey, Pac-12, George Kliavkoff, commissioner. Yes, we want to talk to you. But have you considered, we strongly urge you to consider adding Houston to your conference. Because if you add Houston to your conference, we like the demographics they bring us in the state of Texas, in Southeast United States. Fox executive, it's funny you should say that. We have been talking about Houston, considering them. We've had talks with the AD, president, et cetera, the board. We think that could work. Thoughts on that? What do you think about that? 18 months from now, could those similar talks happen like that 18 months from now?
Yeah, if Houston's still not. Yeah, Houston's not going to turn down an opportunity trying to join one of the P5 schools.
No. I'm going from the Pac-12 perspective. If Fox goes to the Pac-12 commissioner, president, and says, we are willing to up our offers to you, average per school, but we strongly urge you to consider adding Houston to the conference, because if you do, the money we will pay per school is going to go up.
I'd imagine if all the schools are getting more, then you have to do it. But from what I've gotten talking for you, Kris, it doesn't seem like the Pac-12 always makes the clear-cut decision as they phrase it in the article.
Well, see, that's the thing. And that gets me to Pete Thamel, Yahoo Sports Today. He had an idea for the Big 12 to consider adding 8 schools to go to 16. The 8 schools are BYU, Boise State, Colorado State, San Diego State, Houston, UCF, USF, and Cincinnati. And break those 16 teams into 4 pods. West, Boise State, BYU, Colorado State, San Diego State. Midwest, Iowa State, KU, Kansas State, Oklahoma State. Texas, Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, and Houston. In parentheses, he writes, Tulane could go here if the egos of the Texas schools foolishly block Houston. Hold that thought. I'm going to get to that. I'm comment on that in a second. The East Pod, Cincinnati, West Virginia, UCF, and USF. In parentheses, Memphis could go here if 2 Florida schools aren't wanted. Back to the Texas issue. Egos, not the word I'd use. Foolishly, no. Cowards. Cowardly. If TCU, Baylor, and Tech are too scared to have Houston in the conference, they're cowards. If you want to compete, you say you want to be competitive, you have Houston in your conference. Baylor, TCU, and Texas Tech do not carry the Houston market, TV-wise. They don't. Never did. The Longhorns carried. The Longhorns and Sooners draw more eyeballs in Houston than those 3 schools. Without them, the Houston Cougars carry the Houston market. They don't want it. Houston, they're cowards. That's point blank, they're cowards. But they've done it before. So what's shocking if they do it again? And then in that scenario, Houston's stuck. And you got to go to Pac-12. But Pete's rationale for doing this, expanding, adding 8 teams, one of the things is outside the box thinking. But one of the things he suggested for rationale is you're rating the Midwest, the Mountain West Conference, as well as the American. So you're just cutting those 2 conferences and just cut them off at the knees. So you're strengthening yourself and weakening your nearest competitors. So you would definitely, if you're not still part of the Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Pac-12, you're definitely not the Mountain West and the American by adding these 18 to become a 16-team conference. What about that? Thoughts on that? Will?
Interesting thoughts. Are they? I mean, I defer to you on this because you're in Texas. Are they cowards for not wanting to compete, or is it they don't want to split the money? I don't know. I'm asking. Legit question.
They're cowards.
Okay.
They're cowards.
Okay.
Because they, when the Big 12 formed years ago, Baylor politics got involved years ago.
Okay.
To get Baylor in and Houston out. That's politics, which I could toss in right now. I want politicians to get involved now. They were up in arms when Texas voted for the ACC. It's going to hurt our state schools, and it's going to be an economic hit of $500 million, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, why don't y'all speak up for the current state schools to get into the Big 12? I've heard anything like that. So you're all up in arms about the Longhorns leaving, but you're not saying a peep to get Houston and SMU in the Big 12. Okay, which is it? So I'm not a fan of the Big 12. I'm not a fan of the people in the Big 12. But if they are going to do the smart thing and invite Houston and increase Houston's budget, great. Max Olson from The Athletic talking about reporting that some of the Big 12 folks are upset at Tillman Fertitta for what he said a few years ago for speaking the truth about the process involved when they had all the potential schools do presentations to them, and then, thank you, but we're not going to expand. And Tillman calls them out on it. And if those folks, Max Olson saying those folks are still mad at Tillman for saying that, get over it.
So let me ask this. Second question for me. Knowing this, why would Houston accept the invitation if offered?
If it's the only offer that's there. That's the only reason to accept it. If the Pac-12 says, be patient or do X, Y, Z. Do these things. We're going to go to Fox, NBC, heck, CBS. CBS won't have college football in 3 years when the SEC leaves. So if the Pac-12 does that, by all means, go to Pac-12. But if Houston doesn't have any other option, the Big 12 says, we're not big fans of y'all. You don't like us. We don't like you. But TV-wise, money-wise, having y'all in the conference is going to get us the most money. Where do we sign? Andy, what else? Because who else? I ask you, Will, but then I go to Andy. Will, would the Big Ten invite Houston?
No.
Okay.
No.
And who else is there? ACC? Doubtful?
Doubtful.
SEC?
No.
No. So Houston has two options. Unless TV, ESPN says, okay, we're back to where we were, what was it, 3 weeks ago when we had Sam Khan and Joseph Duarte joining us, and Michael Resco and ESPN partners, Disney says, Oklahoma State, Kansas, BYU, Boise State, come join us. You join us. Our TV partners are going to give us $20 million per school per year. If that happens, stay where you are. Mm-hmm. But that means, if the AAC, if Michael Resco can increase the payout per school, stay where you are, Houston. But if the Pac-12 comes calling and says, we can get y'all, Fox Sports tells us, Fox Sports and CBS tell us they can pay us a combined per network $40 million per school. Well, that beats $10 million from the AAC and $20 million, whatever. That trumps that. That's a no-brainer. Andy?
Yeah, you've hit on all the points. At the end of the day, it's all about the money, regardless of whatever conference ends up giving an offer Houston if any of them do. But like you mentioned, I think if Houston had a choice, they'd probably prefer the Pac-12. The question is, the Pac-12 has an offer no extension, and it doesn't seem like it's all muddy. Like, you have no idea what will happen. And I think if Houston were to join the Pac-12, it'd certainly be good for, like you mentioned, maybe you could even divide the Pac-12 and you can have the Arizona schools, maybe even the Southern California schools. Like that would get attention. And obviously there's a lot of moving parts, and a lot of it's just up in the air. It's a lot of speculation. I mean, there have been rumors where the 12 might only add, like, say, BYU or another one of the schools and just go back to being 10. That doesn't seem like a good long-term solution for me for the Big 12 in the long term.
And I saw that today, Will, about, rumblings about Big 12 adding BYU football. Really, just football. But see, that's the thing right there, Will. If the Big 12 adds BYU, is even looking at BYU and not Houston, that's a problem. Demographic-wise, rating-wise, Houston's on par with BYU, rating-wise. Mm-hmm. The numbers show it. There's the article in The Athletic. Cincinnati, it was BYU, Cincinnati, Houston. Number-wise, Houston's ratings numbers were better than Cincinnati's. Yet, the Big 12 is considering Cincinnati and BYU. Come on, Will. If all the numbers are showing prove that Houston beats Cincinnati, beats all the other schools that the Big 12 is considering, why aren't they considering U of H? The cowards.
It's personal.
Yeah.
It's personal. You said
it's personal.
It.
It's petty. That's
yeah. You said it.
That's why
Tell me, call them out. That's
why I say it's got to come from the networks, TV folks, and that really that's what Houston is stuck with.
And that's something that still the people within the university still thinks. I remember when we interviewed Ron Huey on our Pawd, Slama, Jama episode like a couple of weeks ago. He brought it up. He brought up how he remembered how they made him do all these presentations just to announce that they weren't expanding. So even at U of H, they still remember that process. So it goes both ways in terms of the black blood between the Big 12 and U of H.
Yeah, and it goes back, Will. This shows you how petty and personal this is for some folks. When Houston was an independent and joined the Southwest Conference in the mid-'70s, U of H football ran over the Texas schools in Southwest Conference. Ran over them. Just destroyed, dominated the conference for the first 3 to 5 years. Dominated.
Right.
That's what those folks are afraid of if they invite U of H to the Big 12. They're afraid of history repeating itself.
Okay.
Well, if that's your mentality, do better. Recruit better.
Right.
Bring in more talent. Bring in more coaches. You've had a budget advantage for years over Houston. So all of a sudden, Houston won't. If Houston joined the Big 12, the money won't get a full share. So they still be behind the Texas schools.
Right.
Y'all can't make do with what you got, and having all this time to beat Houston. You're still afraid of Houston? You're still being that petty? So
sounds like it.
Yeah. And the media, the national media, not enough of them are calling it like it is. That's what this is. Texas schools being foolish. It's not foolish.
Yeah.
If a network, but you guys said the point, and get back to it. You guys don't believe ESPN is going to negotiate a future deal with the conference, right? You know what y'all said? Y'all believe ESPN and the Big 12 they're done.
Yeah,
that's what y'all believe, right?
When you get accused of trying to conspire to break up the Big 12, and especially, like I said, if they stay packed, or say they only add 2 schools, if it's a BYU and someone else, that doesn't move the needle for ESPN after what happened. And I just don't see It's hard for me to see that happening for ESPN to just put that aside when I guess the benefits aren't necessarily rewarding.
And now BYU has their own deal with ESPN, independent, football, and they've had it almost since the beginning of ESPN's beginning existence. 30, whatever, what is it now? 35, 40 years. How long ESPN's been around?
Yeah, about 40 years.
BYU's been a part of ESPN in some past for quite a while. So why would BYU want to leave their independence and join the Big 12?
Right.
Join a conference. Based on what y'all said, let's carry that further. What if ESPN tells BYU, we have a deal with y'all currently. We're not going to forget. We're not going to let what they said, what Big 12 said about us publicly go. We're not going to forget that. So you keep that in mind if you consider going to the Big 12.
Oh, well, then they don't go, clearly.
See, I was surprised y'all said that about, because money makes people do strange things. Money makes folks forget. Money makes people just, Bob Bowlesby said this about y'all. He didn't mean it. We passed things up. We talked to Bob, closed door sessions, and we cleared the air. We're all on the same page now. Y'all don't believe that's going to happen? Y'all don't believe that's going to happen?
It's possible, sure. Possible,
Andy?
Yeah.
Andy?
Yeah, like I mentioned, anything's possible, but
you don't see it though.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope y'all are right. Because I love basketball, but I know football makes college sports go around. As a U of H alum, U of H long-term health needs to be in a Power 5 conference. Needs Power 5 budget. Let's put it like that, because, Andy, you can speak on this. U of H, they're spending a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They're not making as much as they're spending.
Right.
So at some point, the well going to run dry without new money, a huge influx of money coming in. Basketball, the success of basketball is great, but it's not going to get Fox or CBS to ante up $40 million per year to the athletic department. So if U of H is not in the Power 5 conference within 5 years, how long can they continue doing this? Andy?
Not for long. I'll just leave it at that, because like you mentioned, especially with all the investments they've done and football, and even they continue to make, I believe soon they're planning on building another football facility over by where their field practice, where they practice on the outdoors are. They're planning on making another facility around that area, right in front of where, what was it, the old charter school was, that they recently closed. Like around that area, they're planning on making a new facility. So they continue to invest money into the football program at the most, and at some point, like you mentioned, it'll catch up to them if they don't get more revenue streams.
And see, that's news to me. Well, I didn't know that. Who's behind that?
I'm not entirely sure.
But let's just say I am not an optimistic person for the most part. But the last few days, I'm really, I guess, choosing to believe the Pac-12 eventually is going to invite Houston to join the conference. 18, 24 months, I choose to believe that. Pre-COVID, I was told Houston was beginning or going to begin talks with the Pac-12 about joining. Pre-COVID, then COVID changed everything. with change travel, you wanted to reduce your expenses. You didn't want to travel far. You want your student assets to go, beyond Texas, all that kind of things. But now realignment is being discussed again. And Houston does have in administration, in athletics, they do have some ties with the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.
They do have some people in office who used to work for Pac-12 school, Pac-12 programs. So I'm just choosing to be an optimist. I'm not an eternal optimist, because at some point, if it doesn't happen, you just got to move on and accept reality. But hopefully, within these next 18 to 24 months, Houston will be my preference for Pac-12, because Will, Andy, Las Vegas is, I think, going to be a site for the basketball tournament for Pac-12. I think it'll be a site for the football championship.
Mm-hmm.
And we can be in Vegas a lot, man. Man, that's a selfish, thing. But I think for the betterment of the Pac-12, you get them in Texas, you get them in the Central Time Zone, Houston. It helps them as well.
One of the largest cities in the country. I think about fourth largest.
Fourth, the fourth largest. They still haven't passed Chicago yet. TV market wise, it's not. It's like eighth, because they don't consider, I think, Greater Houston. Like we do. But I'm not sure how much longer we're going to talk about all this and then going forward, because I think we got 18, 20, 24 months to wait and see. Will.
Yes, sir.
I challenge you, man, to start bringing some college football content to our show.
Oh, I got you. Let's go.
So lean on you. Andy going to bring in some Cougar talk for I don't know if I sent it to you, Will. Andy, did you see Houston Cougars football strength of schedule was like, what was it?
Oh, yeah. It was towards the bottom of the entire
14th.
country.
You sent it to me?
No, I'm not sure I sent it to you. I sent it to Andy and James. Out of the 130 schools, Houston strength of schedule was like 115 out of 130. So that gets us back to what we said for a while. 8-4 is minimum, because they're not playing anybody. But
yeah, especially right now with their trying to be as appealing as possible. With this schedule, they need to start turning it around this year.
They need to start winning. This schedule, even if they don't, even if they go 6-6 or worse, this season, I don't believe they have the money to fire Dana. Next season is make or break. Just point blank, make or break for U of H football, because you get that much closer to TV negotiations. And you got to show people nationally that your football program is worth a damn. So they got to turn around next season. Folks missed it. This is a tidbit for everybody. The Rockets training camp dates have not been announced yet. Waiting to hear from the NBA when they're going to announce training camp practices, things of that sort. But I did see the NBA reportedly announced that the NBA personnel, so that's coaches, if you're interacting with the players, you must be vaccinated for in-person contact. Well, that tells me, or it's indicated to me, media got to be the same way.
Yeah.
But that also tells me that Zoom going to be back for this season. Locker room access ain't happening. I don't see it happening. At least until 2022 at some point. And then you're going to have to show proof of vaccination. But I don't believe we're ever going to be back, not ever, but we will not be in locker rooms anytime soon. Which is disappointing because, some of the best talk, Will. And
NFL is different.
Yeah.
NFL is different. They opened it back up. They opened it back up for vaccinated, as you said, proof of vaccinated. media members. Unvaccinated media members have no access to the field, no access to the press box, no access to the locker room.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's similar for. They finally sent out the application for the credentials for the NRG Stadium game between U of H and Texas Tech. And the same thing, whenever you're applying, the first thing they ask you for is, or as a part of the application process, you need to show proof of vaccination to have access, or else they won't grant you a credential.
Yep.
Is it access for the field, locker rooms, or what?
I'd imagine it's just for at least for the NRG Stadium and certainly for the press box. I'm not entirely too sure how they're going to do their post game, but I'd imagine if they do allow media to be in wherever they do the post game for like Dana Holgerson and stuff, if you're there, you'd assume that you're vaccinated. So I'm not entirely too sure how they'll do it, but at least for the press box, like if you're not vaccinated, you won't be able to go in.
And hey, I'm vaccinated. I got no problem with that. Show my proof. I did see, I think Dave Matter, who covers Missouri Tigers athletics, tweeted that the SEC football, in-person access on the road will not be allowed, will not happen this season. So it's Zoom calls for the road games. So that's the SEC. So I'm kind of curious. The NBA is trying to walk a fine line how they're going to do things. It may be a while, even if we are vaccinated, and show proof that the in-person practices for the Rockets may be different. I'm all for it. Put us in the media room. Bring coach and the players to the table. We sit back far enough away from that table. That could work. I think that could work. If you still want to distance us, do that. But I miss it, man. I miss talking to the fellas face to face. Zoom calls it's effective, but it's not the same thing.
Yep.
I miss talking to players, just chopping it up with them off the record. Just about life sometimes. Talking about their alma maters. If somebody on the Rockets, I don't know who it is right now, but as an example, somebody is an alum of an opponent U of H is playing. I'm talking smack with them before a game. Mm-hmm. If U of H wins, I'm talking smack with them after the game. That kind of stuff. Players appreciate that. Just talk to them as people,
yep,
instead of just quote machines. So I hope we do get to that point soon. But I understand. Do what you got to do, man. What's gonna be a long show today? Anything you want to toss out there before we close it out? Let me get one more thing here. Get back to the banners or remind folks how they can find us. Anything you want to touch on? Toss out there.
No, just more sign that we're getting closer to the start of the football season. So the U of H had their Cage Rage event. So kind of a little pep rally to kind of build buzz for the football season, but can't get here soon enough.
Have you heard from James or anybody there how many folks attended Cage Rage?
Yeah, James was there. He was posting some updates. Apparently that was a huge line for people to get in. The line wrapped around. It seems like a good amount of people showed up, but he hasn't provided any more updates since, but a pretty decent showing.
Decent for U of H? Or decent for the Ohio State University?
I'm assuming for the Ohio State, there's probably nothing. But based off this video, there's a good significant amount. But again, it's only one video. I haven't seen too many posts about it. So,
see, Will, we're learning, man. We're learning that it's just different down here compared to up there, man. It's just different.
Okay, it's okay. It's okay.
So, who does the Ohio State play first game?
It's actually game week. It's game week. They kick off the season next Thursday, September 2nd at Minnesota.
U of H faces Texas Tech September 4th.
A week from tomorrow.
At NRG. So, let's see. Ohio State on Thursday. U of H on Saturday. Will, the Browns are done preseason How are you looking for Sunday the 5th? That's right. This Labor Day Sunday. But how are you looking for that availability?
Actually, I won't be. I'll be at Tennessee State Grambling. Hall
Oh,
of Fame Classic. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So when are you available next for our next show?
Next Friday is great. Now that football season's in, Fridays are great. If that works for you guys.
Yeah, Friday should be good.
All right. That works for me. That should be good. So so let's do it next Friday, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Gibson, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Thank you.
September 3rd. So let's do it again. And will be some more football talk for a little while until we get some kind of announcement about when the Rockets practice begins, training camp begins. We'll go from there and wrap it up as you started it. Armani Brooks re-signed with the Rockets, but it is an Exhibit 10 deal. That's a non-guaranteed deal. The Rockets have 14 guaranteed contracts, 15 spots on rosters. So Armani is fighting with Anthony Lamb, and so good luck to him. And one more thing, I forgot to touch on this. Dejan Giroux signed a 2-way contract, not with the Miami Heat, but with the Indiana Pacers. The Heat beat writer Ira Winderman surmised that Miami did not sign Dejan because they want to keep that 15th spot open for later in the season. Well, earlier in the season, guys like Udonis Haslem, they re-signed him. They're going with older guys, and some fans aren't happy. Why would the Heat bring back Udonis and not sign Dejan? But Miami, UD been there, 20 years with the organization?
About that, 19, yeah.
So, and he's not going to play early in the season.
At all.
So, so Miami has like 2 or 3 other guys who either injuries or age weren't going to play, would not play early in the season. So there are Heat fans wondering why Miami did not sign Dejan to a 2-way contract. I reached out to Dejan, haven't heard back from him yet to try to get his thoughts on how the summer's gone and sign with the Pacers. So hopefully I'll get a chance to talk to him for an interview, get him on the show, either or. But 2-way contract with the Pacers, wish him well. Going forward, you got other plans in store. Andy, are you a soccer fan?
When it comes to national time with national competitions, but not as much.
Or Will, I should have asked you. I'm not trying to be, making assumptions. Are you an international football fan?
International, not so much. But we do have the Columbus Crew here, and they just ended a long losing streak. They won tonight, beat the Cincinnati FC. So
I was going to ask you, did they beat the Dynamo? Because Dynamo is struggling here. Boy,
no,
Dynamo,
that's the women's league, right?
No, that's the Dash. Dash is the women's league.
Gotcha.
Dynamo is a men's team.
See how much of a fan I am?
See, I was just going to ask you if anybody had any thoughts on Cristiano Ronaldo going back to Manchester United after all this time. So we'll get that with. Hey, folks talking sports, man. We're going to bring it out there just in the future.
Money.
But fellas, thank you very much. Next Friday, September 3rd, our next edition of Folks Talking Sports, 8 p.m. Eastern. Mr. Gibson, how can folks find you on the internet?
They can find me on Twitter and Instagram, Will Gibson 7. Facebook, the Will Knows page, Will Knows podcast is forthcoming, and WTGsports.com.
Andy, how can folks find you on the internet?
Yeah, they can find me on Twitter at Yanez_5. I'll take this time to plug, but Pawd, Slama, Jama podcast. If you haven't done so, go check out our episode that came out yesterday, actually. We got a chance to, Dayon and I got a chance to interview UH men's basketball assistant Quantis White, and it was a great interview, about 35 or so minutes. I mean, he gave good tidbits, talked a little bit about the guards, had high praise for Marcus Sasser, Tremont Mark. He had really high praise for Taze Moore, called him the best defender he's ever been around. So he had some high praise for him. Talked about what he's learned under Calvin Sampson, even a little bit about Quentin and Dejan too. So it was a good episode.
And Taze Moore most likely is going to come off the bench.
Yeah.
This year's Houston team is deeper and more athletic than last year's Final Four team.
Yeah, going down the list, I mean, we probably talk about 5 guards, and I mean, we almost missed out on Kyler Edwards, who had transferred from Texas Tech, just because we spent a bulk talking about Sasser, Mark, and Jamal Shed and Taze Moore. I mean, they are deep when you go down the list of the roster.
They're so deep. Ramon Walker probably won't play this year.
Yeah, there's another one.
And he was the best player in the city of Houston last year in high school. So it's gonna be a fun season, basketball wise, for U of H men's basketball. I think U of H women, same, will be good for them. Fellas, I'm Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review, HoustonRoundballReview.com, Houston Roundball Review on YouTube. You see it going across the screen there on Twitter, VHR Review. Rocket fans, don't worry. Just a little lull between now and training camp beginning. But Rocket content will be back on Folks Talking Sports. Don't sweat that. Don't doubt it. It'll be here strong. But Folks Talking Sports, we talk more than just Rockets. So what are you going to say, Andy?
No, I was just going to say that it's coming up pretty soon. We're about to be in September already.
Yeah, so it's because preseason begins in October.
Early October.
Rockets have 4 preseason games, and then the games for real count in late October. So we're almost there. All right, fellas. See y'all September 3rd on the next Folks Talking Sports show. Reminder, go to my YouTube channel to see my interview with Steven Johnson, the beat writer for the Memphis Tigers. We talked about our conversation. Talked about Emoni Bates committing to Memphis, how it impacts the Tigers, the AAC. And remember, Steven Johnson, he believes that Memphis can be one of the top teams in the country, but Memphis will not sweep Houston. He said that. I agree with him. Obviously, I agree with him.
Yeah.
But the national folks, all about Memphis this, Memphis that.
That's absurd.
Okay, the best team in the conference, until proven otherwise, is still the Houston Cougars.
They made sure. They tweeted out. People knew.
Thank you very much, fellas. Y'all take care. See you next Friday, September 3rd, on our next Folks Talking Sports. See ya.